Now, while Cavan welcomes tens of thousands of people for the Flower Cule, another major celebration is also taking place within the county as the town of Bailieborough celebrates its own 400th birthday. And we've been finding that it's a town with a strong sense of its own history and culture.
This year, Bailieborough is 400 years old. It occurred because James I of England and the 6th of Scotland decided to plant Ulster, and a man called William Baillie from Scotland was granted half of the barony of Clanquay. Now, there was a village in this area at the time, and they were dispossessed, and the Scottish planters took over, but gradually they reasserted themselves. When Baillie died, the ownership of the estate went through many hands and eventually ended up in the ownership of William Young, who was from County Armagh. He had a vision of what Bailieborough should look like, and he laid out the main street. He built the courthouse and the market house, and he laid out the plots for the houses as they exist today. When Sir William Young died, he was succeeded by his son John. John was already an MP for Cavan. For political reasons, established one of the best known provincial papers in Ireland, the Anglo-Celt, which he ran from the castle for 2 years. And then he went up the ranks in political life. He became Joint Secretary of the Treasury and finally Chief Secretary for Ireland. During his time in Ireland, he established or laid out the grounds for the workhouse. He provided the grounds for the model school, and a lasting memorial to him is the General Registry of Births and Deaths, which he established in the 1850s. After his time as Chief Secretary, he became Governor-General of the Ionian Islands, Governor-General of New South Wales, and finally Governor-General of Canada, where he made an enormous impression. He actually laid out Canada as it is today. When he was in Canada, he was created Baron of Liscar and Bailieborough. And he retired home, and he only lived about 10 years. His wife remarried, and I don't think she came back to Bailieborough except for her funeral.
One of the major cultures in the Bailieborough area is the Orange Order, which has a proud, unique and strong history in this part of the country. It first came to Bailieborough, the Bailieborough area in 1798. It mushroomed and became quite a strong society in this part of the country. And at one time, in the 1830s, it was a very strong force indeed and would have had over 40 lodges in the Bailieborough district. In the early part of the 1900s, that had reduced somewhat to 28, and today it has a standing strength of 3 active lodges in the Bailieborough area. Now, there are 2 traditions in Bailieborough, the orange and the green. And the green tradition is represented by the Ancient Order of Hibernians, which started off in America in 1836 and came to East Cavan, Bailieborough area in 1870. And at one time in the Bailieborough area, there were 40 divisions of the Ancient Order of Hibernians working, and today there is 1 in this district. There's a great shared tradition amongst both cultures here in this part of the country, the tradition of bands and parading. And of course you can't have a band without instruments, and in many cases all these societies were dependent upon the poorer class of people, and there was a great tradition of sharing musical instruments and indeed sharing bandmasters. And one particularly good story is related of an AOH big drummer actually playing the orange big drum in a parade in Bailieborough in the 1920s. As part of the Bailieborough 400 celebrations, this event, where both cultural traditions walked side by side on the roads of Bailieborough, is the first time in history that these 2 diametrically opposed societies came together and enjoyed each other's colours and each other's stories.
I've lived in Bailieborough now for over 25 years and always had an interest in local history. So as a result of that and the fact that Bailieborough this year was celebrating 400 years, I decided to publish a book which I called Bailieborough, A Pictorial Past. I put an ad in the local paper and the word went out that I was looking for photographs. So in no time at all I was overwhelmed with the number of photographs I received, and in fact I received more than I was able to use. Some of them for historical value, I used them, and others they were like, maybe the quality wasn't so good, so I discarded them. One photograph in particular that I got was of the Bailieborough Castle after the fire. It was destroyed by fire, and it was certainly a photograph I hadn't seen before, and I think most people hadn't seen it either, so I'd say that was my favourite photograph in the book. I divided the book up into several chapters. One chapter was on authors with a Bailieborough connection, and when I set about researching that, I thought I might get 4 or 5 or 6 authors. Well, I already knew about, but I was amazed that well over 20 authors came to light.
The relatives of Henry James are buried here in the Church of Ireland in Bailieborough. The James family lived here since the early 1700s, and one of Henry James's ancestors emigrated to the United States. Henry James is best known for his works on the Bostonians and the Portrait of a Lady. Throughout this year we've had a number of events to celebrate his life and his achievements. In September there is a literary festival to further celebrate that life and achievement. Also in September we're celebrating another Bailieborough and Cavan legend, Tom McIntyre. Bailieborough's 400th birthday has opened all our eyes to the major changes and achievements of the area during that period, and who knows, over the next 400 years Bailieborough could aspire to become the cultural capital of Ireland.
And happy birthday to Bailieborough and to its people. And in fact, if you're coming to Cavan for the Flower Cule, you could include a trip to Bailieborough as well. It's only a few miles out the road. And the Flower Cule is, of course, running here in Cavan right through the weekend. And indeed, the town is looking its best, well geared up for the big event. That ends our programme for this evening. Do join us again on Friday, when we'll be bringing you a programme showing how traditional Irish song, dance and music is finding a new generation of followers right around the world. Until then, from Cavan, from all of us in your nationwide team, a very good evening to you.